Hello, welcome back to the Meta Performance Podcast, where we bring stories of people getting after it in all aspects of work, sport, and life. And today I am happy to share the story of Amy Kohler with the listeners. Amy is an amazing athlete. She is also a gifted community builder and the owner and founder of The Running Kind, which is a race direction and coaching company located in the Lehigh Valley. And I'm really excited to share more about Amy's approach to what it takes to become a sustainable high performer. And with that, Amy, I'll let you introduce yourself.
I feel like you did a pretty good job of introducing me. And I think I need to put community builder as my official title on my resume. I like that. I am Amy Kohler. I live in the Lehigh Valley area in Pennsylvania. I enjoy getting out and trail running, mountain running, any type of trail adventure I'm usually in for. I work professionally in marketing, but in my spare time, I run The Running Kind. And like Holly said, I'm always working on community events through that. So I'm stoked to be here. Thanks for having me.
Amy is also a podcast host, and a much more polished podcast host, I will say. And so it's fun to flip the script and have you as a guest. So looking forward to that too. Thank you.
I don't know if I'm much more polished, but I guess we'll see.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
As the episode unfolds.
I'm starting my punch card on the Meta Performance Podcast.
That's right. Yes. Excellent. So in our time today, I'm really interested in talking more about performance, what performance means to you, and how you pull that through in sport and work. But I'd like to start with recognizing that we have some years between us. And I'm recognizing that a lot of younger individuals, younger adults are really being very dynamic with their identities. I see a lot of younger adults being business owners, starting businesses while they're going to school, starting businesses while they're also employed. And I'm curious kind of how you've come to the entrepreneurial side of yourself and kind of what that origin story was for you.
You know, I was thinking about this not long ago because my life has taken several major shifts in my professional endeavors since I left school. And I think one thing that I always seem to have fallen back to is to kind of trust my gut and shift where needed. And so ever since I left school, I've kind of just been doing whatever feels right and whatever I'm stoked on. And I mean, sometimes I feel like that's led me to some great success and sometimes not as much. And so with my business side of starting The Running Kind, I think I kind of saw gaps in a community that I was really passionate about. And it wasn't as much oh, I really would like to start my own business as much as I think I could fill this void. And so I spent years working as a race director for Spartan Race and traveling all over the country. And I loved it. I loved being at races. I loved seeing, people pushing their limits. But every time I came home, I was left kind of upset about the footprint and the impact. And I didn't really see anyone doing anything sustainable in the trail running space. And it didn't seem that hard. So I really kind of took it upon myself to find some mentors that were willing to guide me through what it looked like to start my own race and then racing company, and more decided to fill that void than necessarily leave school and feel like I wanted to start my own business. That being said, I do love, I love all things like planning and organization, and I very much like being a leader. So I'm not surprised that this is where I kind of have ended up for the time being.
I like a lot about what you shared and mentioning that you saw a gap. So that's a specific vision or how you see the world, right? You saw a possibility to create something that did not exist in a community in an area that you were passionate about. And then you went out and found mentors in this space. And you even said, and it didn't seem like it was going to be that hard. And I think that that is a sense of belief and confidence that I hear from a lot of business owners, is that they truly have this deep gut sense that you said, the sense of self, that it's going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, what do you think allows you to see gaps and to build support in a way that's meaningful for you?
I mean, I've always been like a 0 or 100 person. I don't tend to do things that I don't feel I can, eventually excel at or do to my fullest potential. And so, like with running and the running kind, we started in 2022. I was really only running for 4 years at that point. Like thinking now about like the amount of time I spent in the industry is quite short. Like it was a quick jump from starting to run, working for Spartan, and then starting the running kind. And I do think like a part of that is I did have a really big passion that was growing at that time for my own personal journey and like sustainability. And so that combining with like this new excitement around trail running just kind of naturally collided. And I think one of the things that I've always been good at is asking questions or challenging people's opinions. So for me, it was more like, why is no one, like we're out running these trails, why is no one prioritizing the environment that we're utilizing or companies are utilizing to make money? And so, yeah, I think challenging the like status quo, challenging what people normally believe and encounter in their day-to-day life is the important piece.
What inspires you to be that voice of change, to be that person that speaks up and shines a light in a way to get people to think differently?
I don't know if I've ever really felt like at the time that that's what I was doing. Like when I started, I was kind of just excited and figured if I was excited about it and I wanted to see some growth in that area, that there were going to be some others that were also excited about that. And I was confident enough to know that I knew how to put on a good event. So I knew people were going to come race. People want to race. So, I don't think I realized that I was necessarily doing that at the time. And now, like, we're 3 years in and I am surrounded by a community that I've built that continues to remind me that I have done that, which has been a really rewarding thing and has helped me even just like gain confidence that I can be a spark of change in my local community and maybe, greater trail running and running community as well. But at the time, I don't know that I knew that's what I was doing. And now that I do know, it's easy. It's almost easier to like put in the time and the energy because I've seen that difference that it's making. So it's very motivating to continue down that path.
I think the value in what you're sharing is, at least from my perspective, is the value in just starting. If you're passionate about something and you see an opportunity, if it's enough for you, just get after it and start. And amazing things can happen when you just trust your ability and trust your vision and put time and effort into it. That it doesn't take that much time to make a significant impact.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, too, like once you do start, have the confidence to ride it out because like our first year, was not like a raging success, right? Like it's taken us 3 years to be like, okay, we're seeing this community grow. We're seeing that we can invest in other races and other opportunities. But it's taken 3 years to see that. And so like along the way when, the crew that is my kind of sounding board is like, well, this race isn't making us money, that's right. Like, and maybe it's not the smartest business decision to at the time be like, yeah, let's ride it out and try again. But, all of our races now have gotten to a point where we're not losing money and the community has grown enough to make it, sustainable, at least for the time being.
And I think it's important for the audience to know that your races is actually how we met.
Yeah.
So I also live in the Lehigh Valley and saw a really neat opportunity for a 6-hour event at a local park. And the idea is fairly straightforward. You have a fixed period of time and you just run as far, or in this case, as many laps as you want to or can in that set time period. And that definitely speaks to my interest as an endurance junkie. And that is how we met about 2 years ago
Yeah.
now. And so thank you for, again, creating opportunities and bringing community together. So since we're kind of in this business side of you, how do you personally define high performance as a entrepreneur, as a business owner?
I mean, it's a tough question. I think that it's easy to define it as an athlete. As a business owner, I would say it's a little more challenging for me to answer that. But I mean, one thing that I think stays consistent is discipline. Like, I will say one of my shortcomings is probably like my social life is not raging, like I spend a lot of time training and then working my full-time job and then coming home and working for the running kind. But I think when like you have a vision for where you want to be, whether it's next year or 5 years or 10 years down the line, that having those like disciplined practices of what amount of time you're dedicating to each thing is super important. And I mean, as much as I think that's my strength, it's probably, the balance of it is definitely tough for me, that sometimes I'm definitely working too much, but I do get a lot of joy from it. So as long as I'm continuing to find joy in the running kind and training and all of those things, then I think I will continue to be a high performer.
So putting in the time, the effort, and being disciplined. And as an athlete, that discipline really matters when it comes to the pursuit of performance, the pursuit of a goal. So share a little bit about your athletic background and how you are really, or I guess the state that you're in as an athlete now. And if you won't say, I will say you're a world-class trail runner, very competitive, and I would say extremely gnarly technical trail events of various distances. But share with the audience a little bit your journey into sport and how you like to spend your time now.
I have not always been a runner. I spent like the better part of my life playing team sports, most of my life playing volleyball. And I did that through college. And then when I left college, I was struggling with my weight. I was traveling for work a lot as a consultant and just kind of needed something as a baseline to start getting, a little bit healthier. And so I started running. And I hated it. I like really was not having fun, but I was like, this is how I'm going to get into shape. And then I signed up for a Spartan race, which I was very ill prepared for. And what I thought at the time was training well for it. And, went out and totally got smashed, but kind of fell in love with racing and like pushing limits a little bit. And also along that journey, like realized what trail running was. I had a few friends at the time that realized I was running on the road and they were like, have you tried trail running? And I was like, no, I've never thought about it. And they were like, that's what you need to do. Like, especially if you're doing the Spartan race, like you need to go, out on the mountain. And so that's what I started doing. And I spent a few years competing in the Spartan scene and then kind of grew out of that scene and started going after some more, as you put, gnarly mountain races. So I mean, now I feel like I've done a lot of sub ultra distance events. And now, I'm getting into a little bit more of the longer stuff. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now. I would say I'm transitioning out of sub ultra world into ultra worlds and still enjoying super gnarly trail running.
I'm hearing so much parallel to between how you started your entrepreneurial journey and your athletic journey.
Mhm.
You saw a gap. You saw an opportunity. In this case, you wanted to get fit
Yeah,
or get fit again.
what's funny is like how I said in on the business side that I didn't think it would be that hard. I remember after my first Spartan race, I was so sore. Like the next day, I was not well. And I remember talking to my mom and being like, I don't know, I feel like if I trained for it, I could be like really good at this. And she was like, you can't walk. Like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I feel like why not? And it's funny because I do think like sometimes I am a little delusional and like how good I can be at things, but sometimes it works out. So, it's a balance of overconfidence and realistic confidence
And discipline,
and discipline, of course.
right? Which is like the denominator, right? Of how truly you leverage your skills, your confidence, your innate ability. And again, as you saw a gap, or an opportunity for you to improve your life, you went through it and then you just jumped in
Yeah.
and did it. And that is so much like what I'm hearing from the running kinds, right? And
Yeah.
you love it. And with that discipline, you've stuck with it. And it sounds like the first year was really challenging, but you've been able to pivot in a way to really find your sweet spot in a discipline and a type of running a modality that you really personally enjoy. And the great thing about running sport, arguably business, is that there's so much variety, right? Now you can play and, like you said, dabbling with the ultra distance events with 30, basically anything longer than a marathon, B2 distance, 32 miles or more.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the easy part is jumping in, I think. And then the hard part is like once the excitement fades, how are you still showing up to make sure that one, it's still the same goal or like you're still fighting for the same thing. It's just not that initial excitement of signing up for a race or starting a new project or whatever it might be that like you're a few months in and it's getting hard to get out the door.
So, do you have any strategies or go-to for keeping the motivation high, for being able to just still love how you're spending your time and energy?
I mean, I'm very immersed now in the running space. And so it is like interesting, this last year has been different for me to navigate how I'm showing up as an athlete versus as a race director, as a coach, as, someone who's working in the run specialty space. It's running all the time, which is super fun, but it does get, sometimes it's nice to have a break or like an outlet outside of that, which I don't have a lot of. And honestly, even though the running kind is very much in the running space, that is kind of like my outlet outside of like the things that feel hard, just because it's so fun for me. I really like if I could spend all my time being a race director, that's what I would be doing. Easy. It's just so fun to start a project, start to finish, and see it come to life and then like feel that on race day. It's so different than signing up for a race and then running it because you're having your own like personal experience versus as a race director, you've like had this brain dump that has come to life and all of these people get to go out and experience like your creativity. And it's a really unique thing. And so that certainly like keeps me driven to like keep creating for the running kind. As for training, I mean, I feel like anyone, I have good weeks, I have bad weeks, I have good runs and bad runs, and it's not always easy to get out the door. But I think one thing that I have practiced and become better at is evaluating like what matters to get out the door for and what is not worth draining my mental, physical, emotional energy for. And those are not always easy decisions, but having that as like a baseline question of like, okay, I don't want to go do this run. Why don't I want to go do this run? Well, I don't want to get out of my warm bed. That's not a great reason. Like, okay, get out the door, go do your run. But if like if you're dealing with other things, whether they're mental, physical, or emotional things, they're all valid. And sometimes it's okay to not get out the door if it's causing more, of attacks to your body and your energy that is going to set you farther back.
Absolutely. I think that's a really hard place to discern for very driven people.
Mm-hmm.
And that is definitely you. My audience, if you've heard me say this, I love to work with type A plus people, because why wouldn't they go for the A plus, right? To get the most out of life and live a big life, but it can be a double-edged sword. You want to do so much, but it can come at a cost. It always does, to be frank. And we have these different facets of our energy, of ourselves, the mental, the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, right? So many things. And to be able to have the wisdom and the maturity to assess what is best for you in the moment is simply said, but so hard to actually do.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, sometimes you want to not go for the run and sometimes you want to go for the run, and the smart choice is to not go for the run. So yeah, I mean, it's tough. I think like professionally asking for help when needed is super important. It's taken me years to figure that out, and I still am figuring out what I can, delegate to other people that are willing to help, but it's not always easy to ask for it. So, that could be a
Yes,
challenge.
always a challenge. Yes. And, in my journey as a coach, I've definitely recognized compulsivity and the tendency to white knuckle life or to do everything in spite of oneself, which comes at a cost, right? And truly, that's why I've shifted away from a focus on peak performance to sustainable performance, because peak performance isn't healthy. You can knock it out of the park once, but at what cost? So over time, as I was on my own, frankly, peak performance journey, I felt and I saw the cost at which it came, and the stakes were really high. And peak performance, it's attractive, it's flashy, it's shiny. To me, it's not attractive, because I would rather see somebody who is happy, healthy, hungry, and can sustain their performance in all aspects of life sustainably for themselves over time.
Right.
So as you've shared these two facets of yourself as, the work self, the entrepreneur, and your sport self, how has sport influenced your behavior or your perception of performance at work and vice versa?
I mean, that balance of knowing when to go for it and when to back off, I think has come from training. And like, I feel like I've had a variety of things that I've trained for and had goals for. And the longer that I've gone with a training plan, I think you have more time to evaluate like your decision making as an athlete. I mean, the same goes for racing as well. Like, there's how many decisions you make on race day that influence your outcome. And I do think that carries over into my work life, that it kind of allows me to pause and ask, why it's important or if it's necessary, and sometimes like there's certainly things that I've done that I go through that process internally. Like, for instance, I just made a coffee. Was that necessary? 100% no. But it was super fun. Like there are some things that like just have to like fuel the fire and like, kind of mix it up a little bit that keep you engaged versus, just kind of going through the grind and losing scope of like why you're doing certain things or what's bringing you joy.
I think I love that you mentioned the coffee, which is I'm going to see if I can remember, a Colombian Ethiopian blend.
Yeah.
Dry roasted, single origin.
Huh? Yeah. Nailed it.
I'm going to throw out some keywords. Medium roast.
Yeah. Our coffee connoisseur.
Yes. And I try to be. And the element that's coming to mind for me is the element of fun, and that could be a game changer when it comes to performance, right? Not everything needs to be a elaborate equation or on a spreadsheet, right? That is calculated and predetermined because it's going to influence our performance in X or Y way.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we need to do things just because we love it, just because it's fun.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing about what you shared is the value of fun because it feeds your energy.
Yeah. Fills your cup a little bit more, you know?
Get it?
Yeah. Fills your mug, some might say.
Your coffee mug. Yes.
Uh,
And energy is what you need, right? For vitality, for Amy, for just you, for your
mhm.
athletic self, and for your work self.
Yeah. I mean, that transfers into racing too. Like when I have raced and not had weighted expectations for myself and just gone out and had fun, those are usually my better performances. Do I love that? No, because of course the ones that I have higher expectations for are the ones I usually want, a better outcome for. But, I do think it's not surprising that that tends to be the way it has, laid out for me thus far, is that when I'm more relaxed and having fun, I tend to perform better.
Mm-hmm. I don't think that's a unique experience to
No.
you. Definitely, I can resonate with that. I'm sure our listeners can resonate with that too. When we kind of get out of our own way and we're relaxed, when we're having fun, performance comes through.
Yeah,
And how
100%.
challenging it is for us to get out of our own way, right? That is the practice truly
Yeah.
of, mindfulness and awareness and being able to care enough, but not too much
Hmm.
that you tip into anxiety or overwhelm.
Yeah, and like being honest with yourself. Like sometimes I think it's easy to be like, oh, I don't, I'm not tied to an outcome at this race. And sometimes that's not 100% true. Like, so I think having the ability to know really how you're feeling about, getting to the start line for a specific event, um, is a good starting point, because I've definitely, I've felt that as well, that I think, oh yeah, I'm not tied to an outcome here. And really I just didn't want to be.
And that conflict, that tension
Yeah.
of what we're saying and what we mean.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Being intentional.
Yes. And that makes me want to ask about coaching and how working with a coach has allowed you to develop your sense of fulfillment and your performance as an athlete.
I mean, now what it's been like 3 years, I think that I've like had an official coach that I've been working with. I love it. I mean, I don't think I'll ever go back to not having a coach. I mean, maybe eventually. But I really enjoy like not having to lay out my own training and take that like mental energy out of my own like kind of internal conflict or biases, give that to someone else. But even more than like the physical part, I think it's been very helpful for me mentally to have, to have you to bounce ideas off of, to talk through those, big decisions when you're trying to evaluate like what is the emotional decision versus the strategic decision. I think the mental component has been a huge asset to my, physical performances.
Thanks. I mean, and again, I've worked with a coach for the vast majority of my life. And there is such value in being able to recognize the power of partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And again, in the different identities that we have in life, right? To have a business mentor or a support system, right? Of different aspects with the different identities that we have. I found a lot of value in that myself. And I always love to share that in these conversations because I still think that there is some misconceptions on what coaching is and isn't and who qualifies as a coach,
Mhm.
right? Does somebody need to have a certain pedigree or resume in order to work with a coach? And of course, you know my answer to that.
Yeah,
No, everybody, qualifies, everybody's deserving and can find value from a coach as long as they're coachable
right.
and that the right match also matters. But as you've gotten into coaching, what is your unique philosophy and approach towards the power of coaching?
I mean, I think that for me, it has been such a joy to be able to start in my coaching journey. And I feel really lucky that, like, throughout that, I've also had you as a mentor. I mean, as we've stated now multiple times, I think mentorship is like a huge piece of the puzzle to having success in whatever you're doing. And so, not being afraid to ask questions is really important. But yeah, it's been a really fun journey. And I think, like you mentioned earlier, one thing that has always been at the core of what I'm doing is sustainability. And in the climate space, really, that word gets tossed around a lot. And I think I realized as I was getting into that space more that we look at that word as like something that it isn't defined as. And really, like, what it's defined as is to be able to sustain something, to do something for an extended period of time. And so that has kind of been the core of my coaching philosophy as I've gotten into it. And I think it will always be at the core of what we're doing at the Running Kind.
I love that. Sustainability.
Yeah.
It's not for the here and now, it's for the long haul.
Yeah.
Endurance.
Yeah. And I think too, like, what you said about who can be coached, like, or who qualifies to have a coach. It's been really fun to have a variety of athletes that I'm working with that are all dealing with different challenges, whether they're physical or mental or emotional. And it's been interesting, like, as a athlete, I think, to work in that space because this is the first time that I've really done that. And I do think that seeing it from the other side is helpful in also analyzing like those questions of why you're doing things or what's the motivator behind things. It's also been helpful in figuring out like how to give myself more grace when is needed because I'm not good at that. And so one of the things, like when I do find myself getting into those negative thought cycles, that's helpful is to ask myself like how I would approach it with one of the people that I'm working with. And that usually puts an end to it pretty quick.
I mean, a remarkable mental agility to be able to recognize, hey, how I'm thinking about this or myself, the situation might not be helpful. What's another perspective
Mm-hmm.
I can take?
Yeah.
That's mindset. That's amazing, truly, to be able to catch yourself, pause, and shift to a different perspective.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't always happen, but I feel like
Sure.
it has been a work in progress and I feel like I'm getting better at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's intention. It's a skill.
Mm-hmm.
And skills get better with intentional practice over time. And I love that being able to step into the role of a coach has allowed you this ability to have a different perspective for yourself in the moment when it matters.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah, that's amazing. So as we're having this conversation, it is towards the end of the year, 2025 in December. And given the context of our conversation with sustainability, with trail running, with race direction, with the running kind, with coffee, with running, what are you really looking forward to in the future?
I mean, my main focus for 2026 is growing the Running Kind. I think like that's where I'm putting majority of my mental energy into right now. However, I of course have other big goals as well. I think really like with being at the end of the year and like looking ahead at the new year, it's more about where I'm putting my energy and being intentional about it and just trying to prioritize whatever area I need to in that moment to have greater success across the board, to try to find a little bit of a better balance and be able to continue that moving forward. But I mean,
Mhm.
I'm stoked for more mountains and like fun adventures as well. So I definitely have, I feel like quite a mix of races on my calendar for next year that are wildly different and will be interesting to get after.
Yes. And hopefully there's room for fun
Of course.
in all of that.
Of course. It's definitely going to be fun.
Excellent. And as we're wrapping up here, if somebody is interested in starting a business, finally following their passion, just getting started and jumping off to starting a new venture, a new sport, a new relationship, whatever that thing is, what advice would you give them?
I would say find a sounding board. I have a lot of ideas, I have a lot of thoughts, and I'm highly motivated. And as wonderful as that is, it has been crucial to have people in my corner that I can go to and talk through things with to make sure it's an achievable and sustainable idea and not just a spark, as we've talked about before. So I would say find your people that offer not what you want to hear, but a realistic perspective of how it's going to play out or how it's going to build so that you're prepared for whatever you're stepping into.
So find your community, find your
Yeah.
tribe, your support system, your personal advisory council, board of directors, have whatever you want to designate them and call them, and that our collective power and the people we surround ourselves with matters.
Yeah, 100%.
Amazing. Well, thank you for such a great conversation, sharing more about you, which I hope that, your followers of the running kind will really enjoy this episode because you are really sharing more layers of yourself than you do on that venue, of course. And if people are wanting to learn more about you and follow you, where can they do that?
You can certainly follow The Running Kind, which is at the running kind _ on Instagram. And we also have a Facebook group, or our website is therunningkind.net. Personally, you can find me on Instagram at Aims, AIMS KOH. Or you can reach out via email through the Running Kind website as well.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was fun.